I'm going to start off with an unbelievable story about the Chasam Sofer. That there was a Yid, his name was, I'm getting the name right, this is Rav Banet. And he lived in a city called Lichtenstag. Gosh, I remember what the name was. If I get the name wrong, so not too terrible, of the city anyways. But anyways, so it was a big tzaddik and a big goin, and he lived in that was where he lived, in that city, Lichtenstag. But Sof Yamav, towards the end of his life, he went to a resort town because it was like better weather, and it was, like old people moved to Lakewood. It's like it's better weather, better environment. So he moved there for health reasons, and then he was nifta in that resort town. So then it came out a huge fight between the two cities. The city that he lived in his whole life, they said this tzaddik has to get buried in Abba Salem. And in the resort town, so the people said, he might say he died here, he lived here for the last year or two, he has to get buried by us. So the Gadol Hadar at the time was the Chasam Sofer. So they came to the Chasam Sofer to ask the Shaila, where should this tzaddik get buried? So he sat down with both sides. He didn't answer, but he started writing down a tshuva. He started off the thing writing, and since this tzaddik was from Lichtenstag, that's where he lived his whole life, he started writing in the tshuva that he should get buried over there. So, and then it was, with Amol, the writing started getting very fuzzy, and after a few minutes, he changed the psak, and he said that he should get buried in the resort town. And that's what they did. So at the time, nobody had the chutzpah to ask the Chasam Sofer like what was going on. But then, like a year later, one of his talmidim, his chavrusas, came over and said, like, what happened by that psak that you were writing a psak and you changed? He said, I'll tell you. He said, I started writing the psak that this person should be buried in the town that he lived in. And then while I was writing it, I fell asleep. And he said, while I was sleeping, I had a cholam. And in that cholam, a certain lady came, and she said she has murdered the getainis on this tzaddik, because I was supposed to get married to him, I was engaged to him, and for whatever reason it broke off and had big tainis. And he needed a tikkun to get buried in the resort town next to me in order that I should forgive my tainis on him. And that's why that's what he had in that dream, the Chasam Sofer. So that's why he changed his psak that this tzaddik should get buried in the resort town, and he was buried next to this lady. And then after a year, when the person asked the Chasam Sofer this shaila, so then they said they should make a pinei atzamis, they should dig him up and bury him back in his hometown because he got his tikkun. So of course, what does that have to do with Eila HaMishpatim? Asher Tasim Lifneim. So as we know, the Pasha starts off right after Matan Torah, comes Mishpatim, right? So there's a few, it's really all going in one halach kelech. In other words, what's Pashas Mishpatim teaching us? It's teaching us halacha, right? Why is halacha called halacha? Halacha means to go, right? The Torah was given to us, right? We all have a tachlis hachaim to reach the highest madrega that we could reach. Of course, that only means through Torah, doesn't mean through money or anything else, right? So the only way to get there is through halacha, to go through it, and the only way to go through it is that kennen was tzatan. If you don't know halachas, you're going to be mechal Shabbos every week. You don't know basa b'chalav, you're going to eat tarfus every day. So you have to know the halachas. Of course, you have to know all the halachas also of ben adam l'chaverei, and din mazik and nizik and so forth. So what's the first thing that came along? The first halacha that comes along is kisikna eved ivri. What's the Eimek HaDavar? The Eimek HaDavar is that who are we avodim of? The avodim of Kudsha Brichu. This kisikna eved ivri, person Nebuchadnezzar was nichshel and he had to steal money for whatever reason, and then he had to become an eved, right? So all these things. So he fell into a bad place. So right? But the musa of it is that the va'avodei la'olam is that taka, we all avodim la'olam, right? So why was it Ratza Oznoi Bamad Seya? So of course Rashi says Eizu Sheshama and so forth. Really, what does it mean Eizu Sheshama? So just to take it one step further, is we know that it says in the pasuk Ayin Tachasayin. So we teach Ayin Tachasayin is that you have to pay if you knocked out someone's eye, you have to pay him for the value how much he would be worth without the eye. Well, Lamaisa, so let it say, Kesef Tachasayin. Why did it say Ayin Tachasayin? What's the Torah teaching us? And it has all the other Evarim as well. As we know, a person is made up of Taryag Evarim, Shesagidin Ramach Evarim. Of course, the Torah also is. So, as we know also that everything that we have Lamata in Olam Hazeh, you also have Lamaila in Olam Haba. So there's an ayin lamata, that's your physical ayin. There's an ayin lamaila, ayin raya, ayin shemas, right? The ayin elyon, right? And we talk about the kaichas, the iris that are coming out min ayinayim. That's just a mashal of what's really happening to us down here, or actually with a mashal of what's going on upstairs. So the ayin tachas ayin, if you're pageya in someone's ayin, which is the ayin hatachtain is not just the ayin hatachtain yet you pegeya, and you also pegeya in his ayin ha'elyon. And you have the same thing. That's why it's rasa oznoi b'matzei la'olam. Now he has, so to speak, a mum in his ozen, right? So it's of course referring also to the ozen ha'elyon of every person. That person has madregas. What's the ozen for? Rather, the ozen is a kli to be makabel, just like shiva sha'arim on a person's face. You have 2 eyes, 2 ears, 2 nose. You know it's called Shiva Sha'arim. So when anything that's a pegam in those things is always pegeya in the elyon of the same person. You see also that, when we're learning now, if you're learning Eitzris or whatever it is, you see that there's Iris Achap, Eisen Chait and Peh, right? So everything. Where's the gilui of all the iris? The gilui is always in the peh. The peh is connected to malchus, right? So every gilui, that's where you have to be the most nizar, because that's all we know, and that's why the averos that come from lashon hara and so forth are so much more chomer than everything else, and you see it from shtikol rayas from mechashef eloisachaya, because really until here. Everything that we learned was ben adam l'chaverei. Mechashef eloisachaya is really ben adam l'makom, right? It's not between me and you. You can't have any. And question A. Question B is, why is it only by a isha? Why is only, you see, even in the stamzay in the Welt, you don't find a man witch. You only have a female witch, right? So why after by nashim is this thing of mechashefa? So. What was the chet of Chava? The chet was Chava, that she was basically the Nachash was mefata her, right? And then she was mefata in turn Adam. So the Aveira was really an Aveira of Lashon Hara. And for that she got the Zuama of the Nachash. And that Zuama of the Nachash is dafka by Nashim. And we know that Nashim Amidas Hadin. And for that reason, since the Zuama started off by the Nashim, therefore this thing of Kishuf, of to make tricks, is all coming from Koiches Hatuma. And Koiches Hatuma has come from the Zuama of the Nachash HaKadmaini. And that's why it's only Shayach by Nashim. Right? And where is it Shaylat most? It's brought on in the halacha that you're not supposed to walk. First of all, you should never walk between 2 Nashim, because the Zuama of both Nashim will mamish mekalkel you, even though the Hasidim are obviously more makbid on it than the Litvaks, because they don't learn side, but that's the way it is. And especially, I'm saying halacha l'maisa, but especially also by a levaya. There's a big payda not to walk in front of Nashim by a levaya, because then they say, brought down that the Yetzer Hara, the Satan, is mamish dancing in front of the Nashim, and therefore by Levaya is supposed to especially keep very separate. And that's Vard Mechashef Eloisachaya. And so, just to sum up for 1 minute, is, and it's obviously this parsha, although it seems pure halacha, it's really, of course, all musa. How so? First thing is that the mishpatim has halacha. This is the halichas hachayim, has to be b'halacha, of course. And then we're all avdei Hashem. That's first mitzvah of anything that we do always has to be aved Hashem, and that goes together with midos, which you see that midos means twofold. Midos means our actions, how we act, and it also means measurements. And it's hainu hach. If we're honest in business, then our ben adam l'chaverei is good, and so on and so forth. So it's really, if you look at the parsha, it's all just one great big Musa Sofer, even though on the surface it doesn't seem that way.